I won't be lying if I say that many indie devs want to take part in Game Jam at least once in their lifetime. It certainly has been a dream of mine since like almost forever. And I'm glad to say that it has finally come true. In the Pixar in the Boxcars, they say that every story starts with what if statement. And in my box, I have so many of these statements. They want to get out. They need to get out. They have to get out. Visual novels. Initially coming from Japan, these games combine the visual part and the novel part, which lured many non-readers to engage in text and enhanced many bookworms' experience by the visuals. Many gamers criticize visual novels for lack of game mechanics, but let's be honest, it's not a huge problem. And especially recently when many visual novels are adding some mechanics into them. But without taking any more of your time, let me tell you the story of how ACLYPSE has finally taken part in her first ever visual novel game jam. I'm subscribed to an Ukrainian community of people who love visual novels, and in late October they announced a new visual novel game jam which would take part from the 25th of October to 3rd of November. It corresponded to the time I would be back home away from my university, and these eyes of this workaholic person saw the opportunity in that. But with all of the work I have on me, have I managed to finish the game? Did I submit it in the end? The answer is hidden somewhere in this video. This visual novel jam had quite simple rules. They copied the OTA2 visual novel game jam, which I want to take part in the future as well. The rules were that you could use up to one sprite, up to one background, or one CG art. There was also a 1,000 words limit. You could also add up to one soundtrack, one sound effect, and maximum of one voice actor. It also had to be in Ukrainian, and it had to say that it was made for the Ukrainian game jam, but that's true. As I was reading the rules, I was already brainstorming some story ideas. At first, I wanted to make a noir game, ideally in pixel art form, but I don't have almost any experience in pixel art, and I have literally no experience in making noir games. So I had to throw this idea out right away. At least I came up with the title pretty much right away. Loop inside a loop, 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 inside a loop, inside a loop, inside a loop. I wanted to name the game Loop Inside a Loop, which the idea behind it was that at the end of the game, the screen would like loop inside itself, something like fractals or something similar, and then it would bring you to the start of the game. This way it would loop itself. But I didn't know how to execute this idea in a story, so I threw it right away. I am rereading this book and I just understood where I got the idea for the title of my game. Whoa! While I was writing in Nitram, I got this idea of writing the story in a poetry form. But I had no experience in writing Ukrainian poetry. Nobody understands poetry either way, and this story was so short that I doubt that anyone would actually take their time to decipher the verses. So I threw this idea out as well. And so, with having nothing on my hands, I just decided to wait until the start of the game so the theme would be announced and I would see where it would take me. But to succeed in anything, you just have to make a plan. So I tried to schedule out my time properly so I would know what to do on each day. But my university got into my way quite a lot. Like a lot. I'm sitting right now in this chair and I'm already a few thousand light years behind on my university work. But as you know, money is the most important thing for ACLYPSE. So making the game and this video, which takes up all of my time, is totally worth it. Wait. Fuck. Well, after 4 years of being that girl and productivity guru and planning out my days for each single hour, I lost the ability to follow my schedule properly, so I didn't make a consistent schedule. So this is all I had, and I didn't even follow the schedule at all. As I said, I was waiting for the theme to be announced, only to find out that it was free. Alright, so I'm as always late, but the jam has started already! Well, first, I wanted my story to be inspired by some true crime cases. My ideas included, what if a girl who was kidnapped told you her story? What if a girl who was abducted by North Korea told you her story? What if a girl with a Stockholm syndrome told you her... Wait... In the end, I stuck with the idea of a lost show which you used to watch as a kid. A kids show which used to haunt you. Children's show which haunts you till this day because your parents are saying that you were just staring at a static screen for half an hour when you were little. Bonus points to those who will find out what were the sources of inspiration for me. Then my research started. Some books for research purposes. I'm actually gonna use only this one. I was mainly just reading some true crime cases and lost show creepypastas. And after that, I structured out my story. And remember I told you I gave up on the poetry idea I told you in the beginning? Yeah, well, only to renew it. I had never, ever any experience in writing Ukrainian poetry ever before. And spoiler alert, I'm still not really satisfied with how it turned out. And it was a huge challenge for me.
Не сумуй, життя важке, будь то помилки, проблеми та інше різне. Дружба – це що таке? Ти ж, звісно, запитаєш мене. Дружба – це приютити, це тут легке. От в нас слово нове – приютити. Це що таке? Адже ж це кінець шоу тільки так. Бум!
On day one, I also spent some time browsing Pinterest in order to find some inspiration for the character design. I was browsing some Vocaloid designs to get inspired, but in the end, I got a new idea. Since I didn't have my drawing tablet on me, because it is just too huge and I would not take it to Prague, I thought all of my options through of how could I execute the visual style. 3D? It's kind of against the rules and it would probably take me too long. Vector? Better, but I don't want my game to be made in vectors. Photos? Yeah, well, absolutely not. But I got all crafty and artsy. I thought, why not make the character out of materials I already have at home? Come up with a new visual style. At first, I wanted to draw the character on a squared piece of paper, inspired by We Know the Devil. But then I thought, why not make her out of textile? At first, I actually thought of sewing her up together, but it would take me too much time and I don't really have much sewing experience. So I just decided to cut all the textiles I owned into parts. By the end of day one, I even came up with the UI a little bit. I even made a text box out of paper, but it was scrapped later on. On day 2, I had the story all written out and I spent some time editing it.
Час у нас під край. Затримуватись не будемо. Час у нас під край. Йдемо з другом разом грати.
I was also making the sprite and the background. For the sprite, I searched through all of my textile collection and found the best suiting ones. For the hair, I used this felt-like textile. For the body, I chose an old sock. And for the head, I used the squared paper I was drawing the designs on. I thought of sewing her up together, but I think I will leave it till later, maybe as a merge. I then scanned all of the parts with my scanner and arranged them in Krita. For the eyes, I scanned some buttons we had at home, and despite not having a drawing tablet on me, I scribbled on the outlines to get emotions into the eyes with a mouse. For the background, I initially thought of adding some crazy elements into it. I wanted to make it in a form of collage, so I was browsing through all of my photos to find the best suiting ones. But for some reason, I gave up on this idea and made the background in another way. I ripped the top part of the cardboard so there were only those lines showing. Then I scanned it, and then I scanned some metallic clocks and gears I had at home, which I ended up not using anyway. Instead, I used some clocks from Google Images and made an animated background for my game. On day 3, I had finally finished the sprite and the background. And I was also struggling with animating the background, but in the end I got it all to work. Wow! Wow! Is it really all I had done on day 3? Wow. On the 28th of October, There is a national holiday in Czech Republic and Ukraine as well. So all the shops are closed, but museums, galleries and other cultural institutions are open and free to visit. So I used this time to gather some culture and visit all these institutions with my friend. In the evening, my other friend came over to me to get a cup of coffee or two, and I showed her what I had already done on the game. And she said she loved the main character. She always does. She always supports me. I love her. Mwah! But nah, it's not an excuse of why I was doing nothing on Monday. I actually did something. I edited the text, mainly the choices, and I thought of making speech bubbles instead of the usual text box. So I googled how to make speech bubbles in RenPy, and I found out that recently, a year ago, RenPy added this feature of speech bubbles. So I had it all covered up and I didn't need to reinvent the wheel. Though I was struggling with the speech bubbles until the very next day. For the speech bubbles to work, I had to update RenPy. Then I had to copy all the code from my old game to a new one. I was also struggling with this positioning because I made the speech bubble in a wrong size, so I couldn't even really fit the text into it. This speech bubble function is great and it lets you come up with new and unique choices for your visual novel. It still lacks in the mechanics a little bit, but I believe that in the future they will improve it. Then I fully gave up on the idea of the paper dialog box and transferred to speech bubbles. And even then I made them out of a paper which I scanned, and then I put a watercolor effect on top. After adding some text into the speech bubbles, I realized it wasn't fully legible thanks to all the bright colors, but I was already too lazy to remake it. Yeah, only drag one slider. Wow, ACLYPSE, you're too lazy even for that. Then I made the menu with custom image buttons. For the image buttons themselves, I followed this tutorial you probably know of if you also make games in RenPy. I made the switch button out of cardboard. As you can see, I really do love cardboard. My idea was to make the switch bubble rotate or switch its image based on the position of the cursor. I found some tutorials on how to do it, but I was constantly getting some errors. But then Tail Learning saved me with image buttons and image maps. Day 6. On day 6, our friends from Ukraine visited us, so we spent the whole day walking around Prague. So I didn't have much time to do anything. But in the evening, I decided to go to the switch button, finally. How my code works is that when you hover over a button, a corresponding RenPy screen of the switch button shows at the right side of the screen. And when you hover over another button, the corresponding RenPy screen shows again and hides all the other ones. I'm 100% sure this is an awful way to do it, but hey, I at least got it to work somehow. The main menu button is kind of broken still, but hey, it works at least somehow. Then I spent the rest of the time editing the text a little bit, and I also made the soundtrack and added it. Again, bonus points to those who will find out what was the inspiration for the soundtrack, if you can call it that. On day 7, I was planning to work on translation and GUI a bit, but it seems as if I was trying to make the main menu button to work. And is it really all I had done on day 7? Oh yeah, you might ask, what about Halloween? Yeah, well, I don't know who you're talking about. Now then, let's move on to day 8 when I already knew how to make image buttons. And I used this newly acquired superpower of mine to create the image buttons in the game menu, or the icons if you can call them. But I made the mistake of listening to songs I knew the choreography to, so... Okay. I don't remember the dance actually. Got night fever! Da na na na. This part I remember. Yeah, because it's pretty easy, but I actually forgot this part. My favorite one. I'm hungry, I'm gonna go eat. And then I returned back to the old and repetitive and boring work of drawing the buttons using only my mouse. By the end of day 8, I had finished the GUI and I kind of figured out how styles work in NumPy or Python. I was also reading the documentation on translation a bit, and I was getting all tired, and I was weirded out by it a lot because I thought it was around 10 p.m. But then I took a look at the clock. Wow! So yeah, my tiredness threw me into the bed. On day 9, I went to have breakfast with my mother, and then we planned to visit Batya so we could buy me some new shoes. I told her I can't spend the whole day shopping because I still had to finish the game. Then we ended up in Primark. I believe I don't have to tell you the rest of the story. So let me do a quick haul. First, I got this pretty boots in Batya, then also this pretty shirt with Keith Haring, and also this pretty bow, and also whole collection of sake. Okay, I'm gonna stop. But when I returned back home, I spent the time reading the itch.io page and the assets for it. I used the TV I made for the main menu background. And also I asked my mother to help me take photos of the curtains, which I made out of textile and a golden string I had at home. As you can see, this game was really made out of poop and sticks, as we say in Ukrainian. Since I had the time to, I also re-edited the ending a bit, so now it has basically 2 endings and a replayable value. I also started writing the English translation pretty late at night. Game, blame, shame, away, not bullshit. So I believe I went to bed at around 3 a.m. maybe. Day 10 was all about finishing touches. In the morning, I sit my butt down on my chair to finally finish the English translation. It was all quite fun and easy, but later I found out that I forgot to translate the image buttons in the main menu. Thankfully, it was quite a quick and easy fix, so I didn't spend much time working around with it. And I gotta say, since I have never ever written a Ukrainian poetry in my life, I'm not really satisfied with how it sounds. But the English version, I really enjoyed translating it, and I especially like how this paragraph turned out in particular.
Friendship is what it is. You'll ask me as is. To tame, that's what it is. We got a new word. Tame, what it is. You'll ask me as is.
If only I had the reciting skills. It would have sounded much better, trust me. Then I also fixed the spacing of image buttons a bit, and in the last few hours before the submission deadline, I wanted to remake the idea I had at the start of the screen looping itself. But after 30 seconds of googling, I got too lazy and just gave up. So I went on to building the game. For some reason, when I downloaded and extracted the game, it still had the NumPy icon instead of the logo I assigned it. But when you open the game, it changes back to the logo I made. But I was already too lazy to remake it, so I just went on and built the game. And you can totally see the deprivation in this video. Then I finished the itch.io page, published it, and went on to submit the game. ACLYPSE also has this ability where she doesn't answer any messages nor emails, not even the most important ones. So my friends texted me whether I was fine and still alive. Which... nah, never mind. And then I spent the whole night playing games. Dr. Waldridge Experiment, if anyone's curious. A visual novel about hypnosis. And I don't know whether it was me who was so tired or the game actually works, but it got me to sleep like right away. You might be asking yourself, what, day 11? Didn't you say there were only 10 days? Well, yeah, no, the day 11 I just spent checking my analytics, which are quite disappointing. So you should totally play the game because it's totally worth it.
Just look, it works! It works! Does it work? Can you yes! Even the English one works. And? Oh, I hope I deleted all the persistent data. But it seems like it works. I'm so glad. Woo!
There were 111 submissions in total, and I gotta say our Ukrainian community is very talented. I played through all of the games, and I left the list of the best ones which are worth playing down in the description box, if you know Ukrainian. Let's jump to conclusions. It was my first ever game jam I had taken part in, and I'm extremely glad for the experience. I really enjoyed it. This time I actually got to code in Ren'Py, not just write the story like I did in my first visual novel, which you should totally play as well. As an artist, I still struggle with coding a bit because I don't have this programmer's logic. That's why this book got my interest, and it's also written in a very engaging way. The thing with coding is that you write a line, test it, run into 1,000 bugs, Google how to fix them, don't understand what all these technical persons are saying, have millions of tabs opened, fall into desperation, follow a YouTube tutorial, rethink your whole code and whole game just around this one line of code, give up, accept a new philosophy or religion, go on a path of enlightening, fall into nirvana state, finally reach the enlightening in your nirvana state, come back to life, sit back to your computer desk and add that stupid colon mark at the end of the line, test it again, and be happy because everything works now. Oh, I see I have 19 points here, so let me add the 21 and realize that coding is worth this small feeling of victory. With this game jam, I challenged myself to learn coding a little bit. I finally taught myself more complex ATL language, image buttons, image maps, and screen language in Ren'Py. I still have some things I have to work on, mainly the scheduling, also unwrapping the theme a bit better, and marketing and promotion and itch.io asset. But this experience was very valuable. I can tell you that as a new indie developer. It is worth it. So you can await more interesting projects done by me, especially if you donate on Ko-Fi so I can leave university. I suggest you download the game and play it yourself, because it has replayable value. Also, happy Halloween everyone! Oh, wait.
No, wait, let's light up a candle. Hot 20th place. Now I gotta clean up all this mess. And look at this mess. Well, a student living in their house.